Donald Trump's day just became absolutely awful, and it has everything to do with the tax fraud allegations and charges against him, the Trump Organization, and his CFO, Allen Weisselberg. We've talked a lot about this. Basically, Weisselberg and other executives at the company got really expensive perks like apartments, cars, tuition, and they never claimed that as earned income on their taxes, basically meaning that the Trump family, Trump company, and executives were ripping off the American taxpayer. And now there's new evidence, according to multiple sources, within the hands of prosecutors, not allegations, but evidence that Barry Weisselberg, another top person at the Trump Organization, and the son of Allen, was also doing the same thing, getting these high-level perks, the apartments and things like that, and not claiming that as earned income, as income equivalent on his taxes. Again, meaning that both Barry and Allen, both Weisselbergs that worked for Trump, were family friends with Trump, avoided taxes almost certainly illegally. And this is awful news for Trump for multiple reasons. One, it's increased scrutiny on the company. Whereas before you could maybe say that while the company was charged, only one individual, the CFO Allen, was actually charged with doing this sort of scheme, and no other individual had been, maybe allowing you to sort of use him as a scapegoat. But now it's two top executives at the company. You can't ignore that. And one person isn't a pattern, but two might be. And so this increases the likelihood that there will be investigations into other executives at the company to see if they got cars and apartments and other fancy things and didn't claim them as income. And let's be clear, other top executives at this company include Donald Trump himself, but also his kids. Ivanka and Don Jr. and Eric either are or have recently been executives at the company, executive vice presidents, and things like that. The sort of people that get these company perks. And if they didn't claim them on their taxes, they're guilty of the same thing that the Weisselbergs have been. And so that's a big deal. It also matters because all of this discussion we've been having around charging Trump and Trump Jr., the Trump Organization, as mafia types, that can only really happen if you show a pattern of crime at the organization. One person doing something does not make an organization criminal. It doesn't necessarily mean that you can use RICO provisions against Trump and the Trump Organization. But if it's multiple executives doing multiple crimes, then yes, there is an increased likelihood you could go after Trump and his company and his family as like a criminal thing, which means that it's much easier to charge someone for indirect offenses rather than purely direct ones. Whereas under normal law, you need to have Trump's fingerprints directly on some individual offense. It's not necessarily the case if the organization is deemed criminal. And finally, why this matters is it increases greatly the likelihood that Allen Weisselberg is going to flip. A lot of people thought he was going to flip. A lot of people said this dude's going to flip on Trump, but he hasn't yet. He hasn't flipped, maybe thinking Donald Trump has told him, I will protect you and your family if you just take the fall here. It might just be a fine. It might just be a little bit of time in jail. It's not worth going through this big fight. Let me take care of you and your loved ones. And I don't buy Trump as being honest. He's just trying to sell someone down the river. But maybe Weisselberg did believe that. But now his son is potentially involved. And if you go to Allen Weisselberg and say to him, we have your son on the same thing. So your children, they're going to lose their daddy to jail, to prison. He's going to go down. Your family's going to be torn apart unless you give us the dirt on Trump, Trump Jr., Eric, Ivanka, the company, etc. This is an awful day for Trump. No charges directly against him yet, but RICO and the likelihood of flipping has never been higher.